A disabled girl gave her only blanket to a freezing German shepherd. What happened the next shocked everyone. The wind howled outside like a lonely ghost, dragging snow across the frosted windows of the Light Hope Care Center. The hallway lights had dimmed for the night, and most of the children were fast asleep in their warm beds. But Sophie was still awake. She sat in her wheelchair by the window, wrapped tightly in her only blanket, a thin, faded piece of flannel covered in stars. Her bones ached more in the cold, and her body, small and fragile from a rare condition that made her bones brittle, trembled beneath the blanket. But tonight, something tugged at her attention. Outside, just beyond the chain-link fence that surrounded the facility, something moved. She leaned forward, squinting into the snow. There, curled against the base of the fence, was a dog, a German shepherd, large and soaked to the skin, lay shaking in the snow, its ribs visible, its eyes barely open. The animal was trying to stay awake, to stay alive, but it was losing the fight. Sophie pressed her hand against the glass. Oh no. She looked at the blanket wrapped around her, then back at the dog. Her heart raced. She knew what cold did to her. It made her sick, sometimes put her in the hospital. But something in the way the dog trembled, the way it clung to life with every breath, made her decision for her. Without a word, Sophie rolled herself quietly away from the window. She maneuvered through the hallway in silence, reaching her small room. There she pulled the blanket from her bed, the only one she owned. Her fingers trembled as she wrapped it around her shoulders. Then she rolled herself to the back door, quietly unlocking it. The wind slapped her in the face as she emerged into the snow. She gasped, but kept going. The tires of her wheelchair crunched over ice. Her breath came in short bursts, but she reached the fence. The dog barely lifted its head. "Hey there," she whispered. "I know you're scared. I am too." She bent forward, struggling to stretch the blanket across the trembling body. The dog flinched at first, then slowly leaned into the warmth. She placed a trembling hand on its side. "To Congo Ginyu," she whispered again, her teeth chattering. "But you should not die out here, not alone." She sat there for several more minutes, her hand resting gently on the dog, until the cold crept deep into her bones. Then she wheeled herself back inside, barely making it to her bed before collapsing into it, shivering. By morning, the staff found her pale, sweating lightly from a low-grade fever. They rushed to help her, scolding gently but concerned. But when they opened the back door and looked out into the snow, they stopped. The blanket was still there, and beneath it, curled tightly, eyes blinking against the light, the dog was alive. Sophie, still groggy, managed a faint smile. At least he made it. The morning after the storm, the snow still blanketed the ground in a soft, deceptive silence. Inside Light Hope Care Center, the staff bustled with activity. Heaters hummed, breakfast trays clinked, and nurses checked on each child room by room. In Sophie's room, Nurse Hallie frowned as she felt the girl's clammy forehead. "You're burning up, sweetie," she said gently, brushing back Sophie's hair. "Let's get you some meds and back to rest." But Sophie's eyes, glassy with fever, drifted toward the window. "The dog, is he still there?" Hallie sighed. "He's still outside, covered in your blanket, no less." "I need to see him, please." "Absolutely not," Hallie said firmly. "You're already ill, and that dog could be dangerous." Later that morning, a staff member went outside to check. When he returned, he confirmed the dog had survived the night, still curled beneath Sophie's blanket, too weak to move much. As protocol required, Hallie picked up the phone to call the local animal control service, but Sophie overheard. "No," she croaked. "Please, don't take him away. He doesn't have anywhere else. He'll be scared, like I was." Hallie hesitated. That afternoon, Sophie was allowed to speak directly to Ms. Langston, the center director, a no-nonsense woman who rarely made exceptions. "He's not just a dog," Sophie told her. "He's like me. No one came for him either. He's scared of the world, but he did not hurt anyone. He just wanted to be warm." Ms. Langston looked down at Sophie, silent for a moment. Then, her expression softened. "We'll give it 3 days," she said, "just until we find a proper place for him. But you are responsible for him in the meantime." Sophie's smile was small but radiant. "Thank you." She named him Atlas. Over the next few days, Sophie poured every ounce of energy into caring for the shepherd. She brought scraps of chicken from the cafeteria, sneaking him bites when the nurses looked away. She read him chapters from her favorite books, her voice soft and full of wonder. She offered him sips of water from a bowl she kept under her wheelchair. Atlas responded in kind. He grew stronger, slowly. The first time he wagged his tail, it was barely a twitch, but Sophie clapped her hands in delight. Soon he was walking again, limping slightly but walking, and wherever Sophie wheeled herself, Atlas followed like a shadow. He would sit beside her during group therapy, lie beneath her chair at mealtimes, and growl low if someone entered the room too loudly. He was not aggressive, only alert, always between her and anything unfamiliar. One night, just after lights out, Sophie tried to reach for her water bottle on the nightstand. Her chair rolled slightly, the wheel caught, and before she could catch herself, she slipped forward and tumbled onto the cold tile floor. She hit the ground hard, her breath knocked out of her, too stunned to scream. Atlas, curled at the foot of her bed, sprang to life. He bolted down the hallway, barking once, twice, then again, louder, more frantic. The night nurse jolted awake, following the sound. When she entered Sophie's room, she found Atlas pacing in circles around her, barking urgently. "Oh my God!" the nurse exclaimed, rushing to help. Sophie's lip was bleeding, but she was conscious. He found you," she whispered. Atlas nudged her hand with his nose and whimpered softly. That night, the staff didn't call animal control. They called him family. The incident in Sophie's room changed everything. Atlas was no longer just the stray dog she had rescued. He was now seen as something much more. The staff, moved by his intelligence and fierce loyalty, began to take a closer look. Dr. Patel, the center's part-time pediatric specialist, was the first to notice. "This dog doesn't behave like any random stray," he said during a team meeting. "His reactions, his awareness, he's been trained, or at least started training somewhere." With permission from the administration, they contacted a canine behaviorist and former canine handler named Mr. Griggs. He visited the center the following week to observe Atlas. What he discovered surprised even him. "This dog," Griggs said, "after a few hours with Atlas, has advanced obedience ingrained in him. He responds to over 24 commands, some even used in law enforcement. Someone started his training, but something interrupted it. He's sharp, loyal, and eager to work, perfect for service or therapy." Sophie beamed with pride when she heard that. "I knew he was special." It was then that the center made a decision, one that would change both of their lives. They enrolled Sophie and Atlas in a paired development program, designed for children with physical disabilities and their canine companions. Atlas would be professionally trained as a service dog, and Sophie, in turn, would learn how to care for him, work with him, and begin pushing past the limitations she had always accepted as permanent. The training sessions were held every morning. Sophie, strapped into her wheelchair, practiced commands with Atlas. Sit, stay, retrieve, guide. Atlas performed each one with an intensity that seemed more like love than obedience. He learned to open doors with his nose, pull drawers, and even gently tug Sophie's walker when she practiced walking with her leg braces. Weeks passed. Sophie, once reserved and afraid of falling, began to grow bolder. She started transferring from her chair to the walker without help. With Atlas standing beside her, sturdy and still, she practiced walking across the physical therapy room, each step slow but steady, and each time she stumbled, Atlas was there, anchoring her, looking up at her with those calm, steady eyes that seemed to say, "You've got this. I'm here." The breakthrough came during the center's annual Open Heart celebration, an event where families, donors, and community members were invited to see the children's progress. Sophie had begged the staff for one chance, just one, to walk across the small stage at the front of the dining hall. When her name was called, the room hushed. From behind the curtain, Sophie emerged. She held a walker with trembling fingers, her braces strapped tight, face flushed with focus. Beside her, Atlas moved slowly, perfectly in sync. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Sophie took one step, then another. Atlas walked beside her like a shadow. No leash, no words needed, just presence, partnership. Halfway across, Sophie stopped, steadied herself, and looked out into the sea of faces. "I couldn't do this alone," she said, her voice clear. "But with Atlas, I never have to." The room erupted in applause. Some cried, some stood. Atlas sat down calmly and leaned his head gently against her leg. For Sophie, it was not just walking, it was flying. The evening was quiet, the kind of stillness that settles just before something unexpected breaks the peace. Most of the children were already asleep, and the hallway lights of Light Hope Care Center glowed dimly, casting soft shadows. Sophie had stayed up late, reading near the back courtyard. Atlas lay beside her, eyes half closed but always alert. Then he lifted his head. He sniffed the air, his ears perked, body stiffening. Something was wrong. Seconds later, Sophie smelled it too, a faint hint of smoke. She turned her head toward the far end of the property, where the maintenance shed and storage building stood. Through the darkness, an eerie orange glow flickered against the trees. "Atlas?" she whispered, panic rising. Before she could say more, a loud crack rang through the air as a window shattered in the storage building. Smoke poured out. Sophie tried to turn her wheel. She struggled, coughing. The smoke was thickening. Atlas sprang into action. With a grunt, he moved behind Sophie's chair and pressed his shoulder and head against the frame. He pushed, slowly, forcefully, guiding her away from the courtyard and toward the main building's entrance. Sophie's eyes teared up from the smoke, her heart pounding. "Good boy, come on, just a little more," she gasped. He did not stop. Once they reached the ramp to the side entrance, Atlas gave one final push, and Sophie rolled to safety, collapsing forward and coughing. But Atlas did not stay. He turned and ran, across the lawn, through the side garden, into the main hallway where staff quarters and dorm rooms were silent. He barked, loud, repeatedly. Then he scratched at doors, pawed at the floors, even nudged the fire alarm with his nose. One of the nurses opened her door, startled. "Atlas, what's going on?" Then she smelled it too. Within moments, the alarm blared. Staff rushed into action. Children were woken and ushered out. Firefighters arrived just as the flames breached the roof of the storage building. But no one was left inside. Not a single injury, not a single life lost. The next day, news vans lined the street outside the center. Headlines spread quickly. Service dog saved dozens in nighttime blaze. Guardian angel in fur. Atlas the hero. Local news aired footage of Atlas lying calmly at Sophie's feet, his eyes watchful but serene. His tail wagged gently every time someone said his name. A week later, the community gathered in the town's recreation center for a special award ceremony. Banners reading "Thank you, Atlas" lined the walls. Children held handmade signs. A local official pinned a blue ribbon onto Atlas's collar as cameras flashed. Then Sophie was wheeled to the front. She looked out at the crowd, then down at Atlas sitting loyally by her side. Her voice trembled as she began. "Everyone says Atlas is a hero. And they're right. He saved all of us. But before that night, before the fire, he saved me in ways no one saw. I once gave him a blanket, because that's all I had. I didn't know then that he would give me something far greater." She paused, her voice thick with emotion. "He gave me courage. He gave me freedom. He gave me the chance to walk, to grow, to believe in something again. I gave him a second chance. And he gave me a whole new life." Applause echoed through the hall. Atlas lifted his head proudly, eyes fixed on Sophie. His purpose, his person, his home. Years passed, but Sophie never forgot the night she wrapped her only blanket around a trembling, forgotten dog. That simple act of kindness, born not from abundance but from empathy, became the seed for something far greater. As Sophie grew older, so did her voice and her purpose. Alongside her adoptive mother, Miss Langston, who had once been the center's stern director but had since become family, Sophie co-founded a non-profit called Blanket of Hope. The organization focused on providing mobility support, therapy animals, and emotional care for children with disabilities, especially those in underfunded care homes. A second branch was dedicated to rescuing and retraining abandoned service dogs, giving them a second chance. Just like Atlas, Sophie became a certified therapy dog trainer, dedicating her career to matching animals with children who needed more than medicine. She also took the stage often, invited to speak at conferences, schools, and foundations, where she spoke not of pity or hardship, but of resilience, dignity, and the quiet power of connection. And Atlas? He aged, gracefully and slowly. His once legless stiffened, his pace became a gentle stroll. He no longer fetched tennis balls with the same excitement, but he never stopped walking beside Sophie, even as she herself graduated from walker to cane, to, at times, her own 2 feet. Wherever she went, he was close enough to touch, and when he could not climb stairs, she found elevators. When he could not jump into the car, she lifted him with arms that had once trembled at the thought of standing. As the world began to listen to Sophie, she poured her story into pages. Her first book, The Blanket That Found My Soul, became a national bestseller. It was adopted into classroom curriculums. Children across the country read about the girl who gave when she had nothing, and the dog who gave everything back. The cover featured a drawing, a small girl in a wheelchair, her arms wrapped around a German Shepherd under a night sky filled with stars. At the first book signing event, a long line of readers waited, many with their own dogs in tow, many with children in chairs, braces, and boots. Sophie sat at the signing table, a soft smile on her lips, her hand steady as she signed copy after copy. Atlas lay on a soft mat by her side, older now, muzzle silvered, eyes clouded but alert, his ears still perked at her voice. As the crowd hushed, Sophie reached down, ran her fingers gently over his head and leaned in. She spoke quietly, but the microphone caught every word. He was cold and scared that night, like I was, and I gave him all I had, one old blanket. But he gave me something I never expected. He gave me back my life. He did not just survive that night. He led me, step by step, into the light. The audience stood in silence, some with tears, some with hands pressed over hearts, and as the applause rose like a wave, Atlas lifted his head and nudged Sophie's hand, one final gesture from a heart that had always known hers. If this story of Sophie and Atlas moved your heart, you are not alone. Sometimes it takes just one small act of kindness, a single blanket, a gentle touch, to spark a miracle that changes 2 lives forever. At Amazing Paws Stories, we share real, emotional stories like this, stories of second chances, silent heroes, and the unbreakable bonds between people and the animals who choose to love them. Subscribe to Amazing Paws Stories today to join our community of hope, healing, and heartwarming journeys. Hit that subscribe button, share this story with someone who needs a little light, and always remember, even the smallest gesture can lead to the greatest love.